welcome to Taking It to the Streets. I'm your host, Andy Goldman from sunny St. Pete, Florida. This is the show where we take it to the streets, knowing if we don't, the streets will take it to us. Welcome to Taking It to the Streets. It's Andy Goldman, of course, joined with the great Rich Beam, the Beemer, who we will get to shortly. Today's show is brought to you in part by Wrightwood Medical. Wrightwood Medical can be reached at 773-848-7100 or online, www.wrightwoodmedical.com. That is WRIGHTWOOD medical.com. They're your leader in refurbished medical equipment. Give them a call for all of your medical refurbished needs. Beemer, it is great to see you, buddy. It's been a while. I'll set the backstory a little bit for the folks that follow us. Rich, we say our goodbyes at the end of June.
Yep.
Rich headed across the pond.
Yep.
And that was a very interesting month that you spent overseas, if I may say so myself. We have a lot to unpack here. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's start with the Scottish. So that's really the beginning of the trip, is the Scottish Open.
Yep.
And weeks ago. Let's just say it was 7 weeks ago. Folks, look it up. You can watch.
It's about right. Yeah, it's about right.
You gave us Marco Penge as an up-and-comer, a guy that you said, hey, I spotted this guy at Quail Hollow. We played.
Yeah.
The monster. What surprised you more at the Scottish? The way Marco played or the way Goddard played, really with not a big links background for Goddard?
Well, it would have been Goddard for sure, just because of the simple fact that, even though he had won one tournament before, it was an opposite field event and not too many folks knew him. To be fair, I didn't know much about him. I did a little homework on him. He actually, I wouldn't say he was streaky, but, when he missed and made a bunch of cuts, but the cuts that he made, I mean, he was always like sniffing around, one decent day away from a top 10 finish, maybe even a top 5 finish. He had a bunch of top 25 finishes, some top 20 finishes, but, kind of hadn't really seemingly put it all together. Then all of a sudden in 4 days, first time seeing links golf, he just he showed the world that he's tough as nails. And he outlasted Rory McIlroy, world number 2, who's had a fantastic history at that event. Won it 2 years ago with unbelievable birdies at the 71st, 72nd hole. Of the 10,000 or 12,000 people that were out following that group, 99.9999% of them were rooting for Rory. And he heard it and he knew it. So he outlasted Rory, which is awfully impressive. And then he follows it up the following week with a tied third, at Portrush at the Open Championships, 2 straight weeks where he'd been a decent player in the PGA Tour winner, but all of a sudden his whole outlook changed, and now he's probably on the radar. Maybe on the outside now a little bit, but certainly on the radar for a Ryder Cup bid. Should he have a great week this week at Caves Valley here for the BMW Championship?
But Beemer, do you give him? I mean, this is where we kind of cross with horse racing. Do you give Goddard all the credit as you just did as a potential Ryder Cup kind of deserving of that stature, or do you say to yourself in your heart, you know what, this was a turf or dirt horse that really took to the turf. He never tried the turf. That was really only his second try at links. From what I mean, is there a little bit of that? Now you bring him back to the States, and he's not the same horse here as he was there. At least I don't think he is.
Well, I think he is, but I mean, you also have to look at he was playing a lot of golf, a lot of starts in a row, and then all of a sudden, he wasn't planning on playing the Open Championships. He was never that week off, but then had 2 incredible weeks, wins the Scottish, has a great finish to the Open, then comes back and plays the very next week in Minnesota and puts himself into contention through 54 holes. So yeah, I mean, part of it is you have to mark it down as he's on a hot streak. There's no doubt about it. I mean, and, cooled off a little bit last week in Memphis. Then we'll have to wait and see what happens this week at BMW. But I think because the amount of points that he got, you'd have to kind of think about him, because you want the hottest players on your team at the Ryder Cup. I think it that's basically what has been shown in years gone by. And I think these guys, I think that the captains want to have guys that are in great form. And listen, if a guy's pulling through the pack, and it's not like he was having a bad year, or even remotely. He was actually having a pretty decent year. Just again, hadn't quite had that breakthrough week. And then all of a sudden he's got 2 in a row and almost had 3 in a row. So, I look at it as a kid that's, I think he's still 25. He's still finding his footing around the PGA Tour, I'm sure. More and more confident. People know who he is, and he's very comfortable in his own skin and his own game. He swings at it just a little bit differently. But found something on links golf courses. It could have been the putting. That's kind of stat-wise, that's not his greatest strength. A little bit slower greens, so maybe he found something over there for 2 weeks. But listen, the kid can flat out play, and facing down Rory McIlroy in the conditions that he had at the Scottish, that's a big tell.
We'll break down the Ryder Cup more in weeks to come.
Yeah.
But just as based on what you just said, kind of reminds me of the NCAA tournament. So you got 68 teams involved. Who's the 69th team? Does that clearly make Schauffele the 69th team right now for that analogy? Because he's just not hot right now, and he hasn't had a hot year. But the past tells you that he's right for the role. It's a very tough call. Is he the 69th team right now?
He's an automatic qualifier now, because of on strength of what he did last year. Kind of, but I also think that when you're on a Ryder Cup team and you can't just, it's not all about being a great player right now, because the pressure that you're going to be under is massive. I don't think that any player, I think every player to a T on both sides will say the most nervous they've ever been is standing on that first sheet of Ryder Cup. I guarantee you. And I think that you have to know how to handle yourself. And Xander knows how to handle himself. He knows, what his body and mind would be going through. And I think that is a massive benefit. And that's somebody you want on the team. You certainly want a fair share of rookies as well that need to learn and want to learn and be a part of it and are hungry. But you got to kind of have that balance a little bit. So him being number 69, not really. I think that,
Well, let me follow it up with this one, Rich.
Yeah.
Is it more fair to say if you let obviously you're going to have Scotty on the team, then you kind of have to have Burns on the team. If you let Cantlay in, you kind of have to have Xander in there. Is that a fair question?
I think that's a little bit, different, but historically that's kind of what you're thinking about. Yeah. And I think that in Scotty's case, you kind of have to ask him, if you're Ryder Cup captain, hey, who do you want to partner with? Who, and Sam Burns obviously comes to mind because they're close pals and whatnot. But if I remember correctly, and I would have to take a look at this, but I know that Saturday morning in the Ryder Cup last time around in Italy, Scotty got smoked like 9-7 or something like that. It was just a massive, massive drubbing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was with Burns. I can't be 100% sure. So you kind of have to look at that too as a captain, like going, okay, but you guys like playing each other, but how's your record? What did you guys produce? What went well? What didn't go well? So, but yeah, it was the same thing with Xander and Cantlay being good pals. Again, I think that Cantlay's got to show something. He's been consistent, that's for sure. But you're talking about a guy that hasn't won in 3 years with his talent. That's an insanely long time for him to go without winning. And this week back where he won, where basically he got his last tour victory at Caves Valley here. I think he's going to have to play extremely well for Keegan to consider him. And if I remember correctly, I don't think they have to make their team. They don't pick all their teams now after this tournament. I think just the top 6 are qualified after this week, and then they pick their teams, I think, in another couple weeks' time. So there's still time, I guess. But now if you want to make it, on points, you've got one more week to do it. And this is it.
Give us your experience playing in the British Senior Open, Beemer. It obviously, it didn't play as well as probably you wanted to play, and just walk us through your experience over at Glenny.
Yeah, it's always great. I always love playing over there, and anytime I get a chance to play in a golf tournament these days, I really relish it. I think it's fun, but also I'm kind of coming to the point where I've got to figure out how to put how to how to get a little bit of practice in or make my practice count when I actually can, because there's no chance that I can actually hit balls or practice or do anything the week of the Open Championship, which is always the week before, because I've got I've got no time. I literally have no time to do any of that. It's a whirlwind week. It's long hours. It's nearly impossible to get anything done other than do your job the week of the Open Championship. But it's always great to play. Sunningdale is always an amazing golf course. For those of you who've actually played it before that are listening, you'll know what I'm talking about. The course is just I could probably play it every day for the rest of my life. It's probably one of a few golf courses I could, because it's so fun. But it played a little bit softer than it probably should have with the hot weather they had over there. The RNA came in and watered it about a month and a half. They started just putting a bunch of water on it. So instead of playing firm and fast like it should have, it actually played slow and soft. And that was a big bummer, because, I think when it plays firm and fast, I think it would help guys like me who don't necessarily like to fly the golf ball everywhere. We're playing in links type golf courses, even though it's called a parkland. I still think there's a lot of places you can play links type shots. We're bumping and running it into some of these greens, but you had to fly the golf ball everywhere there. And, I didn't have it. I didn't have my best week, but it was still fun to compete for a couple of days and get a taste of it again. Frustrating to play poorly, but oh well, that's the way it goes.
Okay, so let me set the backstory of where we're going now. I am at one of my all-time go-to sandwich joints, a place called Potbelly's. That's from Chicago, home of the sandwich artist, home of Sheila's Dream Bar, home of the Italian for the Chicago crowd listening. They actually have one here in St. Pete. And I order my Italian. Sandwich artist makes awkward eye contact with me. Could tell he wants to tell me something. Finally breaks the silence by saying, "Anybody ever tell you look like Hank?" I took the insult like a man.
I don't say that's not an insult whatsoever. I think it's beautiful. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think it's hysterical. I love that.
And while I was waiting for sandwich artist, their words, not mine, their words. Call them the sandwich artist. That's what they like to be called. And I'm waiting for light hot peppers and lettuce on that Italian. I look down at my phone, as I do 325 times a day. Rich Beam, Paul McGinley, Eric Trump are teeing it off currently with President Donald Trump at his new golf club in Sky.
Yep.
Okay, Rich, first off, it's incredible. Did you know that this day was coming, that round was going to occur?
No.
You did not. Had no clue.
I found out the Wednesday of the week before, because I had known that Trump was going to go open up the golf course. And funny enough, once I knew that, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to alter my travel plans. I'm going to get up there instead of Tuesday morning. I'm going to get up there Tuesday midday, a little bit late afternoon. And I'm just going to relax. I'm not even going to bother going out to the golf course, because I know it's going to be torturous getting out there because of the amount of security that would be out there. So I didn't even have a flight plan until Tuesday afternoon. And so I get a call from this from a guy who's my agent over there, and she says, apparently Mr. Trump wants to play golf with you on Tuesday when he opens his golf course. I'm like, what? And apparently, they'd kind of handpick Paul McGinley and myself to play. So of course you have to say yes. I mean, I don't care about the politics of who you like or what, if you don't like him or whatnot. You have to respect the fact that the president of the United States is asking it. You have to respect the position in the office. And so I immediately said, yeah, absolutely. It'd be an honor. It'd be fantastic. And so I had to do a little bit of small background check. But I mean, listen, I travel 35 weeks a year. I think they pretty much know who I am and what I look like, and if I pay my taxes on time and all that other fun stuff. But no, it was great. It was completely. I didn't have any expectations with it, Andy, and so it exceeded everything that I thought. The question I get a lot is, was he very, did he talk to you a lot? I'm like, talk to me a lot. God never shuts up. You know?
Really?
Oh, he just talks. He's very quizzical about some things too. He's asking a lot of questions about golf, and then, unsolicited things that he talked about, somewhat politic like, but not anything super salacious at all. But yeah, it was just a nice, easy conversation. Sit there and I listened quite a bit and I laughed a lot. And I was very cognizant of the 40 golf carts that were following us, Secret Service agents and some of the heavily armed people that were probably in the dunes someplace, making sure that nobody had jumped out from anywhere that shouldn't be. But no, it was great. I had a great time with them. We played about 2.5 hours. I got done and I was sweating in a lot of places. Because it was nerve wracking. I mean, not nerve wracking, but I mean, it was like, you got to keep up with this guy. He's not slowing down. He's not going to help you look for a golf ball and he's not going to do anything. And it was great. I had a great time. Visited with a bunch of people in his entourage, different types of people, some that work for his corporation, some of them, that work directly in the White House, and other things. So it was quite the experience. I'll cherish it for many years. I love every minute of it.
More unnerving teeing off in that round with Trump, or more unnerving teeing off at the 2002 PGA on Sunday?
It honestly is about the same. It was probably a little more nervy at the at the PGA for different reasons, but when you have that many eyeballs on you and it's that person who's sitting there watching you, yeah, it gets a little bit nerve wracking. And but as the round went on, it got a little bit easier. But I do have to say that I was his partner, and on the last hole, I had to make about an 8-9 foot birdie putt in order to have the match. And he is standing about 2 feet from the hole. He's standing there, just kind of looking at him. I'm going, I need to make this, Mr. President. I really don't want you staring at me right now. But I got up there and knocked it in and it was great. But it certainly was, it was intimidating to say the least, but I had a great time. It was a great day. Have some great pictures, a couple cool videos and things like that. So it's something that, again, it's fun to kind of reminisce about, then show folks some photos and things like that. It's pretty wild.
Beemer, I know we could do a much longer show on this. I just want to get a snippet from you. Northern Ireland and Ireland, those are two different golf layouts. I did a podcast. I'm lucky enough to be a member of the WDIs. That is a We Deserve It group. That is basically my father-in-law, my great father-in-law, and all of his buddies have a golf group out of their country club. They've traveled the world together. And they've traveled everywhere, and I tag along with them when I can. Years ago, we went to Northern Ireland, played.
Yep.
I loved it. The weather was atrocious. It was worse
Yep.
than anything ever in Chicago, just to put it in
Yep.
context for people.
Yep.
Okay, so give me the difference between the layout of Northern Ireland versus Ireland for the American Joe that's going on a golf trip. He has one of the two to choose. I think a lot of times people don't realize they are different. They're different countries. They have different currencies.
Oh yeah, they're different countries, that's for sure. Yeah, but traveling in between them is not a big deal. I mean, there's no border or anything like that. We actually chatted about this a little bit, and here's my answers. I don't know if I see a big difference. Now, there's some courses that are built right on the water that have, the sea views are prevalent and whatnot. And then some of them have the parkland golf courses, kind of more on the interior where you don't see anything like that, but it's rolling hills, plays a little bit more American style and things like that. But, I don't notice a massive difference between Northern Ireland and Ireland itself. I think that they both have amazing golf courses. Obviously, Ireland's going to have more just because it's a bigger country, but Northern Ireland hosted the Open Championship. Around Dublin, you can find a host of great golf courses, but I think also to the west and down south, there's just a bunch of golf courses. Truly is a great one. or Truly, I guess I don't know how to say it. Dunebeg, another golf course that Trump owns, is fantastic. Adair Manor, which is going to host a Ryder Cup in a few years. That's more Parkland, but apparently it's over the top with what the owner JP McManus has done with it. But there are just some hidden gems everywhere. I love going over there just to go play golf. Not if all the. In fact, I'm gonna take a trip sometime, and I'm not going to go to any of the famous golf courses. I'm going to go find some of the hidden gems that not too many people go and play. I don't want to go to the big names. I want to go to places that have these nice little hidden gems that locals know about. The people that truly love their golf. They talk about going to all the big name places, but I want to go to some of the smaller places. I want to go see the places that are off the beaten path a little bit, and everything is small and quaint and this and that. I'm very interested in seeing some of these places because I've played most of the big golf courses, most of the biggest aimed. I want to go find these small little hidden gems that local people, when I was at the Open Championship, they mentioned something. Hey, ever played over there? I'm like, no, like, oh, you got to go see it. It's so good. I'm like, really? Like, oh yeah. But people don't go there because it's not a big name. It's hard to get.
Do you have a preference, Beemer, with if I throw Scotland and Wales and England in there? Do you have a preference of
No, I love golf and I love the people around it over there. I think that they're all amazing. I've never had a bad experience at any place I've gone to. And I haven't heard of any bad experiences from anybody that and my friends that have been over there. So yeah, I golf in that part of the world is so much fun because it's pure. The caddies are hysterical. They're blunt. They're not going to sugarcoat most things, but I love it. I can't get enough of golf over there.
I'm with you. All right, Rich. With that said, I'm going to let you go first. I'm going to briefly talk about the St. Jude's, then we will move up to the BMW. Obviously, the current golf season that we're in is becoming a bit of a Shakespearean, Greek saga, whatever you want to call it, of the demise of Tommy Fleetwood. There's no other way to put it. And it just these losses are definitely becoming synonymous with the current season that we're in. So I know that at least the way I view it. The last loss, again, I'm reticent to call somebody a choker. I think it's overused and inappropriately used because if choking means that you gave up a lead on Sunday in a PGA Tour event, then you're going to have hundreds of people known as, quote, chokers. Okay, you win, you lose. It's not like this guy in this particular one at St. Jude's brought in a 7-stroke lead after 54 holes. Okay, he's got Scotty Scheffler. He's got you get the point. Top 10 players flanked on either side of him. It's a tough go. He showed some big guts making that birdie on 14. It felt good. It felt like he was home free. We all know what happens from there.
Yeah.
What's going on with this guy? I mean, the only thing, again, that I convict him of, Beemer, is leaving that putt outside of Keegan Bradley at the Travelers and giving him that free look, which I thought was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Saying, I can't destroy him for losing the St. Jude's, but obviously there's something to this story at this point.
Yeah, and here's kind of what I've seen. I again, he's a close friend of mine. I walked with him today for a few holes. Asked his caddy a couple of small things about last week and whatnot. Here's the interesting thing is that Thursday and Friday last week, everything that happened at the Travelers was almost identical to the to FedEx. Travelers and FedEx. It was because it was pretty good first opening rounds. Saturday was flawless. He hit every fairway at Travelers. He hit every fairway except for one of them, which is the last hole at Memphis on Saturday. He was leading in driving. He was leading in greens and regulation or strokes gain and this and that. And he was leading in proximity. I mean, he was leading in so many things. So when you're perfect through 3 days, golf is not about it. We always sit there and say, well, I want to have a perfect day. Well, that sucks because you know what? The next day is going to be, it ain't going to be perfect because you just can't, it's nearly impossible. There's only one guy that I know that's seemingly perfect. And that was Tiger when he won the U.S. Open, and then also another guy named Jose Maria Olazabal when he won a tournament by 12 strokes, and everybody's like going, "What in the world is he? What course is he playing?"
You're always going to have one bad day in the four.
We're always going to have in 72 holes. You're going to have at least 63 holes that are great and 9 holes that are a little bit indifferent. And funny enough, that's kind of what happened to him again. Travelers and FedEx. It was on the front 9. Back 9, he started to put the pieces together a little bit, and then just the short game on 16 and 17 this last week, it hurt him, and I think that, and even his caddy says, his short game has been abysmal. It's been terrible since the Open Championship. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting, but the ball striking is always there. And so I just think that he's such a good ball striker that, he probably doesn't spend enough time on the chipping green, or if he does, it's doing just the same mundane things, opening up a 60-degree wedge and going from there. I actually wanted to see him practice a little bit today because I had something to chat with him about, but it didn't work out. He was doing something else this afternoon. So, but I just think that, like he said, he'd rather put himself in that position to fail, and instead of, not having a chance than having a great Sunday and still finishing third. So if he'd have been 8 strokes back and shot 63 on Sunday and finished third, it's still the same place, but he just didn't have a chance to win it. Right. So, it's there. He's got all the pieces. He just doesn't quite put it all together when you need it the most, and not getting it up and down on 16 and saving par there, and having a relatively easy chip shot on 17 and hitting that 6.5 feet past and leaving yourself probably the most difficult par save you could and not making that. It's gonna bite you. So, there's just some parts of his game that still need to be cleaned up. But again, a lot of it's mental. I think there's something there mentally that he probably has to get past. But I love the guy like no other out here. I think he's not only a great player, but he's a great human being. And so sometimes it's tough for me to criticize him. But, criticism, has to be said sometimes when you're in my field.
This episode of Taking It to the Streets is brought to you by Wrightwood Medical, the leader in used and refurbished medical equipment. Wrightwood specializes in ultrasound equipment, but can also be your vendor of choice when sourcing lower-cost alternatives for your operating room suites, scanning the entire medical spectrum. From single physician offices to larger hospitals, Wrightwood is the lower-cost solution for your everyday medical equipment needs, and all of Wrightwood's equipment comes with warranty. You can reach Wrightwood directly at www.wrightwoodmedical.com. That is with a W, WRIGHTWOOD medical, or 773-848-7100. Again, 773-848-7100. If it's used medical equipment, it's Wrightwood Medical.
Let's move on, Beemer, to this week. The BMW. We're down to 50 players left in the FedEx Cup. Are you a fan of this format? Are you a fan of the FedEx Cup or not?
I understand it, but no, not really. Because again, midway through the season, I think it was in March, they decided to change what the format was. You're not going to have the starting strokes gain or strokes like they have the last few years, but what they're going to do is they're going to change the payouts, I guess. You're going to get X amount of dollars, like Sky Shepard's going to get X amount of dollars for leading after Memphis. He'll get another X amount of dollars for leading the points after this tournament, and then play for the rest of the $10 million next week, or whoever wins it wins the $10 million. And I don't know if they're going to win the FedEx Cup. I don't know how that works, or if they win the Tour Championship. I don't know how it all works. I'm very confused about what's going on with all of it. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Well, I mean, there's too many of these loopholes with the PJ. We'll talk about it a different time. It's the same thing with how they let guys just shooting off the street playing elevated events with sponsor exemptions. I mean, I don't know how you let Ricky Fowler, other than I give it marketing. I don't mind the guys that get sponsors invites, because listen, there's a reason why they're getting sponsor invites, because A, they're good people.
and B, they're probably doing a lot of things during the week that you don't see behind the scenes, meet and greets, dinners, so on and so forth. But they're also putting butts in seats. Like I, I like to see Ricky Fowler playing. I like to watch him play. I like to watch Jordan Spieth play. And listen, sponsor invites have been getting. You're not going to win, especially when it comes to the signature events. Because if you get a sponsor's invite there, well, that means that you probably didn't play well enough last year. But who are they going to pick? It's
But
I
what
think
happens is it really tilts the scales. I mean, think about it
well, it does, but
we're talking, and I'm talking about for elevated events. That's insane. How does Hayden Buckley, Eric Kohler, Nick Hardy ever break through if there's a sponsor exemption for someone at an elevated event? That seems very difficult.
again, it goes back to the old adage, man. You got to play better. You got to make your way in the game. You got to make yourself known in the game. I mean, these guys, the sponsors, want to put the biggest names out there.
I got you.
So I'm sorry. I mean, and listen,
Nick Hardy's not brings people to the golf course. It's just
not gonna do a whole lot. But when you go to any tournament still to this day, and you see 100 little kids out there running around, I'd say 60 to 70% of them are all wearing Ricky Fowler orange.
Wow. So there's a value to that.
Yeah, there's a value to that. There's a value to that. So I mean, you're not. And listen, you're just, when you get the sponsors invites, you're not going to win it. But listen, I'd rather have those guys. And listen, we're going to be talking about a slew of different people, because I can promise you Ricky Fowler probably will not get all those next year, but he won't need them because he's in the top 50. But we're going to be talking about somebody else next year who's going to need those. And again, all those guys have to do is just play a little bit better. And,
right,
even Jordan Spieth is going to have to take a back seat. He's going to have to probably play a few events that he may not normally play in. And I think he's going to have to earn his way into some of the signature events next year. And I don't think he's got a problem with that. I think it's just like, you know what? It's time to get tough again. It's time to get out there and start winning tournaments again. And that way, that'll take care of everything. I don't need to write sponsor letters, because I guarantee these guys don't want to have to write to sponsors anyways.
No. With that said, Beemer, who do you like? Give us 3 guys you like for the reasons you like them this week.
So, and I'll go kind of against the normal guys, because I think this golf course, if Rory McIlroy doesn't finish in the top 3, something's seriously wrong. But I think Ryan Fox is a 2-time winner on the PGA Tour this year. And most of my picks are based on the fact that this golf course can place over 7,600 yards and it's a par 70. That's big. That is a massive, massive golf course.
What a beast.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be interesting. There's a couple of holes out there that are not going to be very well received this week by the week's end. And you'll kind of know who these are. But I got Ryan Fox, again, big hitter. I'm going to go Sam Burns, kind of going back to the Ryder Cup stuff. He wants to put his best foot forward. He had a good finish here last time it was played here. And he can putt the lights out of it. So I like the fact that I like Sam Burns. And one other guy who I know that really needs a big week for Ryder Cup reasons is Young, Cameron Young, because the simple fact that, he won a couple weeks ago, but he wants to be on that Ryder Cup team. He's from New York. And he's going to put everything he has into trying to make that team. And he's won multiple tournaments. I think the state amateur also was at Bethpage Black. So he has success there. He knows what it feels like to play there and win. So I think that it's a sense of urgency for 2 out of those 3. And I just think that Ryan Fox has been a little bit too quiet as of late. He didn't play very well in the Scottish or the Open. And historically, those are the tournaments that he loves the most. He loves playing links golf. So I'm thinking that, he wants to finish the year on a big note, and why not play well here?
All right. I think that we're in a different situation here as far as we're in a tournament now. We are in the final 50 players that have survived the an arduous grind of a PGA season, and you have to, it reminds me of, again, horse racing, the mother of the great California Chrome. Her name was Love the Chase. And I think you have to love the chase. You have to love it at this point to be in the top 50 and to want to get to Eastlake.
Yep.
That said, now also have a few names here that I don't think love the chase. I want to start with them. Now, how do you not love the chase? How do you love the chase? To me, and Rich and I have talked about this offline many times, there's a metric that tracks a weighted round versus a non-weighted round. A weighted round is a round that has more consequence than a non-weighted. In English, if you were teeing off at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday, 7 strokes off the leader, Rich Beam, Jim Nance, Dottie Pepper are not following you on every hole. In fact, your round substantially easier, non-weighted, than someone at 2:30 who has the aforementioned following them on every single hole, and there are metrics to back this up. You agree with those metrics, Rich? But that is different. It's a different round of golf.
Yeah.
Different round. Different stresses, different anxieties that will exist. So I need somebody that played in a weighted round last week, specifically, and did well. And has their ears pricked up, as another horse racing term, and wants to go at this time of year.
Has the bit between their teeth.
Yeah.
As Paul McGinley loves to say.
Exactly. The guys that, to me, don't love the chase. Tommy Fleetwood. I'm reticent to beat up on him only because he was -1 last week, and that was with a terrible round last week on Sunday. He still was -1 for the round in a total letdown for him. Gut says he's had enough for the season and doesn't want the chase. I'll throw him out. Andrew Novak. These are guys you're going to hear about. They're in the top. They're in the final 50. So this is a top 50 player. Andrew Novak was +1 last week. He's had enough. Okay, that is a bad sign. Horrible sign. Third man, Ben Griffin. He's a young guy. He was even last week in a relative weighted round. It wasn't something he didn't tee off in the final 3 groups. Let's just call it a noon round when the final guys go off at 2:30, something around those lines. And he was even. Very timid to me. I don't like that. So I'm throwing out Fleetwood, Novak, Griffin, moving on. Here are the guys I like. Drum roll, please. Akshay Bhatia. It's becoming a weekly narrative. But Beemer,
I get it.
I have the numbers to back him up. Okay. First off, this is a 2-time winner. He's 23 years old, folks. He's already won twice. If you think it's easy, go ask Tommy Fleetwood. So this kid's won the Valero, won the Barracuda at 22. He's 23 now. He's -1 in a weighted game. He's been lurking in the top 7 on Sunday for the last month. I don't know why this guy's not more celebrated. He's 23. He's a 2-time winner. He can play, Rich. There's nothing there is.
Yeah.
And he screams of a guy that wants to win this. I don't know. There's something about him. He's got a competitive edge to him. Now, we can flip that and say he hasn't delivered on Sunday the last month, but he's been there. He's absolutely been there. So he's my number 1. Ludwig Oberg.
Yeah.
He's another guy. -3 last week in a weighted game. He's young. He's frisky. Remember, folks, 69 holes through the Masters. It was Oberg that lost himself in this bunker, I believe, on 15. And that was the end of his Masters dreams, but he was there. He was in deep, deep contention. And he's very young. He's a second year on tour kind of guy. Here we go again. Drum roll. Beemer, I don't give up easily. Patrick Cantlay.
There's that.
There's a narrative out there. It's not on Taking It to the Streets, but it's out there that this guy is struggling to find his game, or that this guy isn't delivering the goods, or that this guy's on the fence of the Ryder Cup. Bear with me. He's made 18 out of his last 20 cuts.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going back to last year's St. Jude. He's been dynamite. He gets to the weekend every single time. A lot of those are elevated and major events, for the record, because he's a top tier guy. He's not out there playing at the Barracuda or the Houston Open. So those are big events. His last 10, he's 13th or better 5 of the 10 in big elevated majors. The only place he struggled was the U.S. Open and the Open. We're not going to fault him. Last week, he finished 9th. I don't know why, Rich, there's this narrative about this guy. All I can make of it is that people don't like him personally. He does have an icy-ish personality. There is the thing about pay me for the head.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't buy into that. I think
Okay.
that is. It's not just him that was doing that, but yeah, he can certainly seem to rub people the wrong way. I like him. I like his grit. I like his attitude. He's got a very big fuck you attitude. I don't care what you think of me. I'm going to go out and do my job, and if you don't like the way I do it, then I don't care. I do like that about Cantlay. And I think that he does need to be on the Ryder Cup team because, again, he is not going to back down. He's not afraid of anybody or any circumstance. Again, though, I'd love to see him contend again. It's just very odd that he hasn't won in 3 years. I mean, that part of it, that piece of it is very, very strange. And he's put himself in some pretty good positions, especially out in LA. The Genesis, I think it was last year. And, he's come up short, but I saw him hitting balls in the range last week. His coach is probably one of the all-time greatest people I've ever met, Jamie Mulligan. How about that for a name for a coach, Jamie Mulligan? And I can tell you what, he'd rather have a surfboard and a cocktail in his hand than be on a golf course. He's the Southern California, just cool hip.
And who's his Anna?
I love Jamie Mulligan. I love me some Jamie Mulligan.
Who's the assistant? Oscar Divot?
That's exactly right. Exactly. But anyways, if you don't ever heard of Jamie Mulligan, look him up. He's one of the coolest cats I know out there, man. I can't say enough great things about him. But anyways, listen, I think Cantlay's going to be on the team. I think that, and I got nothing against him. He doesn't seem like you're right. He's lurking, but he hasn't been in the mix of, like in the top 5, top 4, top 3, And I think he needs to get himself into that final group or the final 3 groups and get a taste of it again. Because after a while, it's not that you forget, but you want to have that nervous energy, that nervous excitement about you. And the only way to get that is to put yourself, right in the mix of it come Sunday. And so it'll happen again at some point in time. I'd love to see it happen this week, not just because I think he needs it for the Ryder Cup stuff, but I think he'll be I think he'll be on that team, no sweat. But I got no issues with Cantlay. I think he's one hell of a player, and I love the way he goes about his business. And it's just, he doesn't give a shit, doesn't care what anybody else thinks or says or does. He's doing his own gig.
Beemer, am I right that Akshay is way underrated for what he's done?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I don't know if I wouldn't ever call Akshay underrated. I still think he's got a few things to learn as a young man, about how to play certain shots and to be comfortable and confident playing those.
Well, talked about on the show, you talked about how he'll fly the pin and he won't spin the ball back. And you're right about that. He's
a little bit, yeah, and I wouldn't say one dimensional, but he seemingly goes for everything. Like he's full out, the knockdown shots, are not really in his arsenal as much as they probably could be. Again, he's a young guy. Even though he's been playing this game for a long time, I think that there's still a lot more to learn, and to have the confidence to go out there and hit the correct shot and to do it. And everything he sees, he wants it going from left to right, from right to left, a fade for him. And sometimes you got to sit up there and hit a draw. So I think that the more that he can increase his arsenal a little bit, and he doesn't have to, hit draws all the time. But if you're under the gun and coming down the stretch and you need to get to a pin that's back right, you've got to figure out how to hit a low draw there, and I think that takes time. I think that, he turned professional before he was 18 years old, didn't even go to college, was a stud of a junior player. But I think as you get older, and on the PGA Tour, I think that he'll gain the confidence to hit the shots that will carry him to bigger wins, be in the hunt at majors and things like that. But I think that he needs to, he still has a lot of learning to do. And that's, the kid's he's fascinating to watch. I mean, he's a skinny kid that hits it a country mile, and it's damn sure fun to watch. But there's some shots that he's got to be comfortable hitting when the time comes that he needs to produce. Because there's a lot of shots out there. Even some of the best players in the game don't really like to hit certain shots, but they'll do it. They'll hit it if they know it's the right shot. Even if they don't feel 100% comfortable doing it, they'll do it because they know that it has to be hit.
That's the trust the process piece, right? That's
believing in yourself, and say, listen, and that's all. So here's the thing about it. That's also keeping it fun. And that, kind of sometimes I think going back to Tommy Fleetwood, I think that sometimes he forgets to have fun out there. I think he carries a lot of weight on himself in order to go out there and to remain perfect like he has been over a few days. And I think he forgets to exhale and just enjoy the walk a little bit. Again, I haven't had a major chance to talk to him. I probably will, if not later on this week at some point in time, but certainly next week, the first couple of days. But, listen, the he's an amazing player, but I think sometimes he just carries the weight of the world on his shoulders when he doesn't really need to.
Beemer, we will look forward to this weekend. We will look forward to doing this next week, and we will break it down big time at the Ryder Cup. We will break it down.
Yeah, we'll figure out once everything gets well, I guess we'll have a little bit of talk about next week, but then certainly when they pick all of them, then we'll have a Ryder Cup show where I'll be at the house. I might do it from my pool. I might just sit there in my pool and have my little lounge chair with my little 2 drinks in there, kind of floating in the pool, and either that or beer helmets on there, like there's and beer.
Love it. Hey, one question I didn't ask you. What kind of music? There's a rumor that Trump likes to listen to music on the golf course. What are we?
Oh, yeah. Everything. He listened to everything. It was crazy. It was such an eclectic thing. I mean, there was old time rock. There was newish pop. There was like some classical in there at one point in time. I mean, it covered the entire spectrum, like all of it.
Interesting.
It was wild, and I loved it. And then after a while, though, he kind of turned it off. And finally, about 16, I said, "Mr. President, it's a little quiet out here. Turn that music on." He goes, "Oh, yeah." It turns the music back on. He gets distracted easily. He had a lot of things going on that day, too. But yeah, it was fun. It was a good time.
Beemer, look forward to seeing you next week at East Lake, buddy.
You got it, buddy.
Goodbye from St. Pete, and remember, folks, you're only as good as your last trade, so never too high, never too low, till we meet again.